My brothers and my sisters, it seems the heels advocate has to make this video because Zilla Fatu makes his debut in NXT, and this sparks one question. Does the WWE have a Samoan problem, a Samoan crisis, or does the Samoan fatigue even exist? And before Editor Zach hits my intro, how about you hit the people's elbow on the like button and subscribe with the bell notification turned on if you haven't already, or otherwise Heidenreich will find you. And please hit my intro. You know what it is, Editor Zach, please hit my intro. Oh yeah, here. Now, my brothers and sisters, the Zilla Fatu debut made me think about a lot of things in the WWE that I had a problem with. Now, I will be real. Last year, 2025, the inception of the MFTs, that was a time that the Samoan fatigue or the inflation or just like the overexposure of a lot of the Samoan or Tongan talent was just at an all-time high without any real representation behind them. They would just be coming in flocks, and none of them really had their own individuality. So the fact that I was always looking forward to seeing Zilla Fatu debut, and when he did finally make his debut, I was really happy that it was in NXT, because for a long time I was just thinking that he might just show up at SummerSlam and get involved somehow in the match between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Now, had that been the case, it would have been textbook, oh my god, another Samoan got involved in the Roman Reigns freaking vortex, and they wouldn't really shine on their own. The fact that a 26-year-old Zilla Fatu is in NXT right now really makes me think about him as his own individual, and really it is a great sign. Now, that is him, right? As an individual. He is an exception, but for a long time, this was not true. And let's just talk about the people that were basically in the Samoan vortex that makes a lot of the fans say, well, you know, aren't we just a little bit tired of it all? And so let's start from the beginning. The fatigue comes from the fact that the Bloodline has been a storyline that has been running since 2020 up until today. And ever since WrestleMania 40, we kind of already expected the Bloodline to kind of not be one unit anymore. We saw main event Jey Uso do his own thing. He became Intercontinental Champion, won the Rumble, went ahead, won the World Heavyweight Championship, defeated Gunther, so he already had his own run. On the other hand, we had Jimmy Uso do his own thing over on SmackDown, and he was in the contention of the United States Championship, so that was good. On the other hand, we had Jacob Fatu, who finally broke off with Solo Sikoa after his failed run as the fake tribal chief. Then he created his own faction called the MFTs. So Solo Sikoa went out there and basically thought to himself, well, you know what? Now I am on my own 2 feet. I couldn't really get the Bloodline to fuse with me, but you know what? I don't need the Bloodline. I will create my own family tree. Out comes the MFT. So when he had a match, I believe against Jacob Fatu, I believe it was Jeff Cobb, and then a month later or something like that, it was Talla Tonga that came out, and then Talla Tonga, and then Tonga Loa. It got to a point where the faction was just inflated beyond any real reason, and the problem then became, what do we do with it, right? In the sense that MFT was basically the main ticking point of us being really tired of the Samoans or the Tongans, right? Obviously, on an individual level, it is nice to see the Samoans and the Tongans have such close ties with the WWE and professional wrestling. They are a very talented pool of individuals that love the sport of professional wrestling. Now, would I really like them to maybe step up their game in the sense of their presentation and maybe not kind of all blend in together? I would have to believe that one of the main reasons why Roman Reigns is as successful as he is because he doesn't really have the stereotypical Samoan attire or look from the beginning. Even The Rock, right, half black, half Samoan. Roman Reigns, half Italian, half Samoan. Even The Rock suffered from this paranoia, essentially, right? If you want to call it. It's basically whenever a Samoan wrestler enters the WWE under a Samoan gimmick or a very Samoan look, they tend to not do that well, right? Back in the day, Alpha and Sika, Haku, all these legends, they would definitely have a lot of success because at that time, everything had to be bombastic and caricaturized. Nowadays, it's not that, polarizing. You don't really need to sit there and maybe try and make it like very comical or, animated as possible. So now you can just sit back, lean back, and maybe present your own character a lot. And that's when, for example, Jacob Fatu came into the mix. Yes, he looks very Samoan, and he made sure to play into that when he made his debut and when he was basically Solo Sikoa's crazy mythical island warrior. I love you, Solo. You know what I mean? When he did all that, that was basically the Umaga reincarnate. And I was like, you know what? I kind of miss this. I'm happy that we have Jacob Fatu. He looks serious. He looks real. But I saw a lot of clips of him in the indies where he would talk, in his regular voice, be thug and, like be gangbanging type stuff. You know what I mean? So he definitely had his own aura, and I knew he was kind of playing a character. So I couldn't really believe it that much. But ultimately, he went out of that character. But now that I look back at it, I really do miss his I Love You Solo era because there was just really something convincing about Jacob Fatu. But nowadays, he has a more streets, a more hood look to himself, and that works for him. It's very believable. It looks like he is that person, so it doesn't really feel like he's playing a character like he used to. On the other hand, we had Solo Sikoa, who in the beginning came onto the main roster under the typical Samoan gimmick of the Samoan reinforcer. He didn't wear any shoes. He had the shorts. He had the towel. He had the thumb taped up. He had the Umaga ripoff look. And off rip, I don't believe it, right? Like he's 5'11", 250 pounds, 260 pounds. And it's like, okay, dude, look, nobody's going to believe that you're some, crazy tough guy that can beat anybody. But he played his role very effectively as this guy that could equalize any match where Roman Reigns was losing. So that was his role. But once again, this is the trend. They come in with a very, very Samoan or Tongan heavy look, gimmick, and they immediately fall under somebody else. That is my biggest problem here. I'm not too sure about you guys, but I never really had an interest in seeing, for example, Jeff Cobb join up with the MFTs. I really didn't have an interest in Talla Tonga joining up with Solo Sikoa or Tonga Loa. And those guys were set up to fail and they got cut. A year later, they were cut. So that says something. And it plays into the fact of, okay, maybe being Samoan will get you into the WWE, but you really have to become your own person. And I think that is a lot of the times when people have a lot of Samoan fatigue. Because that family is vast. I mean, come on. You have The Rock. You have Roman Reigns. You have Alpha Siga. You have Yokozuna, Peter Maivia, the Usos. All these, it's just too much. You know what I mean? There's just so much talent that you can't keep track of. So ultimately, of course, they will make their way into the WWE, especially if you have The Rock in your family. You have a lot of opportunities open up if you have The Rock in your family. So that is very interesting to see. But it is not really interesting to see them coming in as a bunch of lackeys. The Usos, if I'm not mistaken, they were in the WWE before Roman Reigns. And obviously, they kept their role as tag guys for many, many years, maybe 10 years even. And once it got time for them to maybe get some personality, okay, now they're under the wing of Roman Reigns. And we kind of got introduced to the whole Samoan thing. Up until then, it wasn't really obvious, right? When The Rock made his debut under Rocky Maivia, he kind of had this look of okay, curly hair, the typical Samoan kind of look. So he definitely looked very, very Samoan. The Rock looked a lot more Samoan than Roman Reigns ever did. But obviously, it's just besides the point. Now, let's talk about the future of the business. I believe that Jacob Fatu is really the turning point in a lot of the Samoan presentation. Now, a lot of people will make this argument where they will say, well, it seems like the Samoan wrestlers have this black presentation, right? The black street guy presentation. And, then you will have people that will play dumb. Oh, what do you mean black? You know exactly what we mean when we say that, right? We don't say that in a bad way, but we just want to make it obvious that this is just the way that they present themselves, and this is the way that they are in real life. So if that's the way that they are, all right, great, bring it in, right? Bring that in. Don't bring in something that will make you look like you're playing a caricature, right? When Jacob Fatu was the Samoan werewolf and the enforcer of Solo Sikoa, I love that, right? I truly loved it. But when the only thing he has ever said is like, oh, I love you, Solo. Okay, we set the bar so low, right? So low, not solo, that the fact is, anything that he would say other than that will basically present him as his own figure, as his own man. So for me, the biggest problem is not bunching them together. And I think the problem isn't that we have Samoan fatigue, isn't that there is a lot of Samoans or there's an overexposure. I think there is a problem of utilizing their talents for where they truly lie. When we have MFT, okay, and we have Jacob Fatu feuding with Solo Sikoa, Night of Champions, Talla Tonga debuts. Okay, great. Solo Sikoa has this really tall guy that's an enforcer. But in that particular feud, if we just can roll back the clock 1 year and we focus on the Solo Sikoa Jacob Fatu feud, what was that feud all about? If we can remember, Solo Sikoa created his own bloodline when Roman Reigns was gone, and he had, I believe, Tonga Loa and Talla Tonga. And then he brought in Jacob Fatu. So he had 3 people behind him. And when Roman Reigns defeated Solo Sikoa at Raw Netflix 1, they basically left him, or not. I shouldn't say left him, but they kind of disbanded for a little bit. And Solo Sikoa reintroduced everybody as MFT, but Jacob Fatu kind of faded away, right? After that loss, Jacob Fatu did his own thing, and when the MFTs were created and Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu, they kind of ran back into one another. Solo realized that Jacob is now his own man. I like that, right? But it was a stark difference, but I truly liked the fact that he went from I love you Solo to like, I ain't messing with you, punk ass Jay. I mean, like he was pulling that stuff, so that was cool. But as soon as they started feuding, it's obvious Solo Sikoa was never going to beat Jacob Fatu. And Night of Champions happens. Talla Tonga comes in. I think to myself, didn't this guy already have 2 lackeys? Now we have a 3rd guy, right? To add insult to injury, then we add Jeffrey Cobb into the mix and Talla Tonga. Wow, what? This is a faction of 5 people. And their size got so big, they had nowhere to go other than feuding with the Wyatt 6. So now we have to sit here and pretend that they now have a shot at being a tag team. No, right? We just shot ourselves in the foot. We had Samoan inflation, so that's why JC Mateo and Tonga Loa got cut. It is what it is. And now Tama Tonga and Talla Tonga, they're doing their own thing as just a regular duo tag team, and that couldn't work in my opinion. But like I said, they are also caught up in the vortex of Solo Sikoa and the Bloodline, so they aren't truly on their own. At some point, we'll have them all back in the mix with one another, and that becomes a problem. Talla Tonga as an individual is very impressive, right? He's very tall, obviously, and he is basically very good looking. And if he is in a little bit more better shape like Big Cass is right now, he could be a very, very great standout star. And that is the part that really saddens me. He got introduced as just another guy under the Bloodline, but he doesn't look like another guy, right? I believe his name was Hikuleo in New Japan. Hey, he looked like the freaking Great Khali. So definitely it kind of bothers me that he is just looked at as just another Samoan lackey type of guy when he is just, a talent that we can have. Look at the impact that Big Cass has on the roster diversity. He is about 7 foot tall. Now he's very jacked. He wasn't like that. If Talla Tonga can get that jacked, I would love to see Big Cass versus Talla Tonga. A singles match. Their own feud with their own characters. I want to see Talla Tonga go out there and cut his own promos, right? The problem becomes that. And when basically Zilla Fatu debuted in NXT, and in that ring, I believe we had Tony D'Angelo and Grayson Waller or Cruz Santana, whoever the hell, one of the two. And he's out there making his own name, and he already has his own name going into NXT. I love that, right? I love that. So the future seems to be very bright for the younger generation. Maybe like the generation of Tonga Loa, Talla Tonga. They might be a little bit cooked, but ultimately speaking, we are now headed in the right direction. I have a lot of critiques for Triple H, Shawn Michaels, the way he's like recruiting people in NXT, but this was a recruit waiting to happen. And I think that the main roster will definitely have a lot of benefit to it. Now, speaking of the main roster, we can't speak about the main roster without speaking about the main bloodline, the main Samoan tribe, obviously, Roman Reigns, the Usos, and Jacob Fatu. That is where my problem truly lies, you guys, right? I gave him credit, but now it's time to just bury him, okay? It's now too much for me. It's now too much, right? I get to a point where the bloodline under babyface Roman Reigns is unbearable. The fact is this. They had a purpose going into WrestleMania 39, 40, and that was to protect Roman Reigns. They did that. Solo Sikoa, he was mute. Now he speaks. Now he's funny. Now he's his own guy. But once again, when Solo Sikoa spent the entire last year, 2025 up until today, building his own name, his own family, his own faction, his own head of the table situation where he's leading, just for all of that to go out of the window, he had 5 people behind him, now he has nobody, and now he's ordered back in line to go and meet up with Roman Reigns. That is the part that truly bothers me, guys. It's not that I have anything against Roman Reigns. It's just that nobody can be anything under him. We had main event Jey Uso win the Royal Rumble, open up WrestleMania Night 1 when he was, basically actually supposed to main event Night 1, but that's besides the point. He was actually going out there to be his own man. But immediately after Roman Reigns wins the World Heavyweight Championship, where is Jey Uso? Oh, he's back in line. I don't get that. I really don't get that. Roman Reigns spent so many years brutalizing him. Jey Uso was against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. He helped John Cena and stuff like that to basically defeat Roman Reigns. He was a helping force in defeating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. People forget that. The Rock attacked Jey Uso in the build-up to WrestleMania 40. People forget that. And as soon as Roman Reigns loses his title at WrestleMania 40 and spends an entire year just like wandering around losing, now he just has some kind of pity for him and he just falls back in line. That's the part that bothers me. I don't think the main story should have been Roman Reigns is the World Heavyweight Champion and now the Bloodline is back and now they're dominant. No, I don't think that. I really thought that the Bloodline storyline should have been very friction-oriented between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. But now we get to a point where we just scrap all of that. If you guys remember, at the end of last year, Jey Uso was going through this segment of crashing out. He would throw the prime bottles around the ring because he lost to LA Knight, and he was crashing out, spearing people after the bell, head kicking people after the bell. He was being very, very nasty. Why? Because Roman Reigns told him that, hey man, if these people walk all over you, gotta walk all over them, man. This is our respect. Go get that. Go earn it, or at least get it back. Remind them who we are. And he did that, right? Because that was basically the advice that Roman gave him. And I remember that Jimmy Uso had a big problem with that. Remember that? Jimmy Uso had a big problem with it. Jimmy Uso was telling Jay like, damn, bro, you're not acting like yourself. You're acting a lot like Roman. And as soon as Jimmy said the name Roman Reigns, Jey Uso kind of had a visceral reaction. Like, damn, man, don't mention that name, as if like he's not good with that name, with that person. So I don't know where all that friction went. I really don't. Jimmy Uso, he had his own thing going. Now he's just a lackey. I would have loved Jimmy Uso be around Naomi more. Have them maybe showcased in their own lights. That could have separated Jimmy Uso from Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. Jey Uso already was separated. Now they're all falling in line. Jacob Fatu was the best out of them all. He was better than Solo Sikoa. He was doing great at SmackDown. He had a feud against Drew McIntyre. He had a match against Cody Rhodes. He was on track to basically challenge Cody Rhodes. But like I said, no Samoan can be basically doing their own thing or be good at doing their own thing if the tribal chief is there. If Roman Reigns is there, then he's going to force Solo Sikoa to be back under him or be back in his orbit. The Usos to be in his orbit. Look at what he did to the Samoan werewolf, Jacob Fatu. I mean, he could have went out there and challenged Cody Rhodes, but no. Because now I'm the champion, Jacob Fatu, you got to come and be under me. And that was unreasonable. He has Jacob Fatu, one of the most dangerous guys that was booked at that time. Very convincing guy. Just go out there and lose twice to him. And the second match, he got completely squashed. I mean, he had no offense at all. That's weird. That is really, really weird. And that is where you lose us. Had it be that Zilla Fatu, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, all of the Bloodline are on Raw every single Monday Night Raw, like Roman Reigns, for example. I mean, like, if Roman Reigns and the Bloodline were on every single Raw episode and they have a story to tell and they are furthering every single week, okay, no problem. But Roman Reigns will show up one Raw out of the month, and the rest of the month, those 3 freaking episodes, we got to sit there and listen to Jimmy and Jay and Jacob just freaking bicker. It's stupid, right? These people are their own individuals, and that is the problem, right? And that is the obsession that the WWE has, basically bringing them in and bunching them together, right? And another, topic of discussion could be that, the color plays a role. Like, I think it's very, very odd that Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins got to be together, right? Or Michin and Jade Cargill. BFAB, Michin and Jade Cargill got to be a faction. It's very much so, color bunch them together type of ordeal, right? For a lack of better terms, you guys know what I'm trying to say here. And the fact is this: you can't look past it. You can't look past it. The only time a Samoan or a Samoan faction, a Samoan wasn't a faction without another Samoan, was Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, and that was very beloved. People were very happy with that faction. They were very happy with that tag team. I mean, they won the Undisputed Championship, so hey, that means something, I guess. But they really don't like to not have them be together, as if they can't be away from one another. That's what I'm trying to say here. I'm not too fond of Talla Tonga. He's whatever, but he's at least in shape. You know what I mean? He's the only guy in shape from the looks of it, aside from Roman. And Talla Tonga, he can be his own character, but they just don't allow them to be their own character. And so when a lot of people say, oh, another one, oh, where did they come from? I don't think that reaction is justified. But when that is the reaction, when they get called up to the main roster and they A, have to either be in the orbit of Roman Reigns, or B, be bunched up together on SmackDown under somebody else, then that is a problem to me. That really becomes a bit too much for me. That is the point where the fatigue really kicks in, because what's the point in bringing them over if they are just going to be a lackey? Now, obviously, not anybody can be the main roster guy. The main event guy on the main roster. But, does everybody have to be a lackey or under somebody else? See, that is a question I would love for you guys to answer in the comment section down below, because it seemed the heels advocate had to make this video.